welcome to this week's episode of Gods and Monsters by E.E. King, read by me, E.E. King. Each week, MetaStellar will release an episode of Gods and Monsters, both in print and on YouTube audio. Thank you for joining. And now, this week's episode, 18, We Are the Stuff That Genes Are Made Of. Last week, Jim began working at Maria Mechanics, making animal figures. River was attacked by a werewolf and wakes up with a gun in his hand. Wang Li Ju is lying next to him dead. Christiane, Jim's old lover, dies. Chapter 52, Jim, Raybrook, 1984, Totems. One night I got home later than usual. It was one of those perfect, warm fall evenings that happen more often in memory than reality. There was no moon, but Sirius, the wolf star, shone out bright as day, made me think of my tiny cell. It filled me with a sweet sadness, that light from a distant past. I don't know why. Sometimes hard times to live through can be good to remember. Something had happened to me in prison that could never unhappen, nor did I want it to. I would not want to live those days again, but they taught me things I might not otherwise have learned. On my doorstep was a book. Frost was edging the trees, and the air had that fresh tingle you get right before first snow. The book, though, was as warm as if it had been lying on top of a hot stove all day. It was dusty and so old it was hard to tell what color it had once been. Burgundy, maybe? It smelled of sage and thyme. The word totems was scrawled on the cover in a thin, spidery hand. The ink was so dark, it was like looking into a deep red pool. I recognized both writing and ink. It was the same that had been on the envelope containing my $1,000. Inside the book, on the cover page, was my name. The book was thin, worn, rust-colored pages, soft as cured leather. About the first 20 pages had been filled by that writing of that meticulous hand in that same peculiar ink. The rest was empty. I took it inside, sat on my broken spring bed, and started reading. The book told of legends, of animals, spirit guardians, totems, crows, wolves, and coyotes. I never did figure out who left it there. Chapter 53, River, San Francisco, 1984, on demons and deities. I wonder why certain archetypes, monsters, if you will, are so constant throughout history, Ryo whispers. River lies immobile in a hospital in the colorless color of tapioca. He's glad of Ryo's voice filling the emptiness. I think I'd go crazy if I were here all alone, he thinks. Then he laughs. The pain takes his breath away, but the ghost of a smile shades his face. Most people wouldn't consider talking to your dead uncle a sign of sanity. You, says Ryo, are not most people. River is not surprised that Ryo can hear his thoughts. Vampires and werewolves, Ryo continues. Chupacabra, Buddha, lycanthropy, Michigan Dogman, therianthropy, lava showmen, skinwalkers, hopping, Lugero, Ansaba, and more, all conceived from a fear of darkness, death, and the unknown. The same monsters under different names appear in all places and times. Society modernizes, but fear never subsides or changes. The most sophisticated shiver when a howl shatters the night. We pretend that men no longer transform into beasts, yet deep inside, I wonder, if a worm can turn into a butterfly, why not a man into a wolf? We have created these demons, and our fear keeps them alive. Chapter 54, Gods and Monsters, 1921 to 1953. Becoming a werewolf by being bitten or scratched is common in modern horror fiction, but rare in actuality. We like to believe we control our destiny, but fate is written in tiny strands of DNA. Werewolves are usually born, not bitten. It's genetic, like having blue eyes or large breasts. Silicone can amend the latter, and contact lenses the former, but modern science has not yet figured out a way to transform man into wolf. The werewolf gene is recessive. It skips generations, lying in the bones for decades, even occasionally centuries, before emerging in the full moon with hungry teeth and cutting claws. The gene resides on the Y chromosomes of Western Europeans. Werewolves are not indigenous to Asia or the Americas. They are an invasion brought to the new lands by explorers, missionaries, and colonists. Still, considering that Silex the Greek visited the Middle Kingdom in 500 BC, and the waves of Europeans that have broken on the shores of China from that time to this, it's almost unbelievable that werewolves did not enter, or at least did not infect China until 1921. Still, it is the nature of werewolves to be unbelievable. Abel and Mary Reconier were Protestant missionaries who came to northern China in 1918 to spread the word of Jesus, bringing with them the hope of resurrection and recessive genes. Abel was an unforgiving man, and when the morning after full moon, he awoke stained red with blood, he thundered into the congregation and told them about sin. He told them that their ancestors would burn forever in hell because they had not known the Lord. He was terrible and majestic in his wrath. It was Mary, gentle Mary, that brought congregants in, not by words, but deeds. She helped the woman grow rice in flooded fields, and when illness spread throughout the village, Mary cooled flushed, fevered cheeks with damp cloths and soft hands, calming delirious children with her clear soprano voice. Her songs rose from sickbeds, shattering darkness, and just for a minute, when the notes lingered in the air like mist, it seemed that miracles might be possible. And when she burned in labor for 4 days, sweating until she was dry and screaming till she had no voice, the woman came and comforted her and tried to soothe her pain with poultices and herbs that had quieted the agony and push of birth for centuries. But it did no good. After Mary's death, the church emptied. No one wanted to hear Abel call upon the fury of the God who consigned their ancestors to eternal damnation. When, in 1953, Abel, along with all the Protestant missionaries, were expelled from China, sighs of relief rose from the village like flocks of freed birds. It was a month before Abel's departure. Fog hung so thickly over the rice fields, and sky merged into a single grayness. By noon, the sun would poke burning fingers through the mist, illuminating the curving waves of the paddies and the straight green rows of young rice. But now the world was muffled. Only the whistling of a young farmer out checking the health of young shoots disturbed the stillness. In a shallow declivity around one of the trenches, he saw something pale and fleshy. It was a foot, the foot of 14-year-old Junmai. She lay in the ditch, motionless and bloody like the discarded remnant of some wild beast, though there were no large carnivores left near the village. For weeks, June Mai lay in the still empty space between this world and the next. No one talked openly about her injuries, but the villagers hid strings of 10 coins beneath thresholds and draped 5 coins over lentils to ward off evil spirits. June Mai survived, but the happy, round-faced, carefree girl changed into a pale, silent, somber woman. When she recovered almost 6 weeks later, she was married to Wang Fei, a man in the next village many years her senior. A wolf gestation is 63 days, and a human gestation is 9 months. But hybrids follow different rules, so perhaps it is not strange that Zhu Mei's son, Wang Lijun, was not born until 12 months after she'd been found in the rice field. Wang Fei never suspected the child was not his own. Li Jun gave no sign he was of mixed race. His only unusual features were the heavy single brow that shaded his eyes and his long, fine, slender fingers, the index and middle digits of equal length that seemed out of place on his thick, squat body. Chapter 55. Wang Li Jun, China, 1966. We are the stuff the genes are made of. Li Jun grew up in rural China, the oldest of 2 sons. His brother Bao was 8 years younger. His father Fan was a hard man, quick to anger, fast with a strap. June May, his mother, viewed the world through tear-stained lenses. She'd been married too young to this man, a stranger she did not love or even like. She feared her husband and resented Li Jun. He was a bitter reminder of a full moon and a dark night. Her memories wrapped her in moonlit rice fields and rung with howls as sad and lonely as forgotten memories. All babies are born with a need to love and be loved. It never fades. Li Jun's need was not fulfilled. His only consolation was Bao. Bao was everything Li Jun was not. Happy, carefree, and loved. Li Jun might have been jealous. He might have been resentful. He was not. Instead, he loved Bao deeply and all with the intensity of his hungry heart. His brother was his only friend, a solace to loneliness provided by nature. On a warm summer evening, on his 16th birthday, Li Jun sat on the porch, watching as the full moon peeped over rice paddies. Suddenly, his stomach was gripped by a large hand, wringing his intestines like a towel. His head felt constricted by a vice. Rolling on the ground, he writhed in agony. From his throat rose an unearthly howl, a howl of longing and of fright. His face and arms lengthened, legs shortened, fingers contracted, nails hardened, grown sharp and pointy. Rough, coarse hair sprouted all over his body. Suddenly he could see, clearer than he had ever seen before. His now pointed ears picked up the sounds of tiny creatures, night birds, and distant children. He heard his father snoring and his mother sigh, and he smelled. He smelled not only the earth and sky, but time and distance. He smelled what had passed by and when. He smelled fear and joy, life and death, hunger and lust. But most intensely, he smelled food. He needed food, required flesh. He was famished. With a howl, he leapt at a small animal cowering at the end of the field. He tore limb, from body, ripping hair. He sucked the marrow from delicate bones that crushed easily between his jaws, leaving nothing But not sated, he bounded off in search of other prey. He awoke at dawn, sore and scratched, his mouth closed and limbs covered with gore. His clothes were in tatters. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts, trying to remember. Making his way to the edge of a field, dirty reflections in a pool of stagnant water horrified him. He tried to wash away some of the blood, to cleanse himself of the remnants of flesh and muscle. Slowly, painfully, he made his way home. At the edge of the rice field near his home, his mother and his father knelt. His mother was wailing, his father grim and silent. The grain around their feet was crushed and bloody. "Where have you been?" Van demanded. "Ah!" Junmei screamed. "You are alive! You are alive!" She ran to him and threw her arms around him, then pushed him away, holding him at arm's length, noticing his blood-stained, tattered clothes. "What happened to you? You were attacked. My boy was attacked." "Yes," Li Jun said. I was watching the stars and suddenly I was grabbed from behind. I was mauled. He took me far, far away. I don't remember anymore." "He," said Van. "He who?" "I didn't see." "And Bao, where is Bao? Where is my baby? Where is my baby?" Junmai cried. I never saw him," Li Jun stuttered. Junmai bent down, scooping up something from the field. "Ah!" Junmai's howl exploded into the sky, a rocket of pain. She was holding the end of a child's little finger. Bao was never found. His disappearance never solved. The family never spoke of him. His mother's sorrow and his father's rage hung over the house thick as rain clouds. Wang Li Jun closed his heart. He would love no more. It was too painful. The sisters sit. They are silhouettes of black and white. The usually dark room is illuminated by the full moon. It casts long shadows. Nana has just finished a tiny boy's jacket woven of fine silk. It is the pale luminous green of Luna moths, wings fringed by a deep carmine singe. She sighs. "Two brothers, close as woof and wharf," she says. "Two brothers, close as hands and feet. I do not know whom I feel sorrier for." "Two sons make one brother," Asia says. "One is gone and feels no pain. The other feels only pain. Forever alone with only memories and hunger. I know who I would pity." Thank you for joining us. Join us next week when one day I went to work and there was nothing there. The whole shop and the sisters three had vanished. There was just an empty field where they had been. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.